We're going to talk a little bit more about Cork as we go along, and I think we'll probably tee it up by doing a bit of a power rankings here, and this will be just based on the teams that are left on the championship. In the championship, do you see any reason to have Limerick anywhere other than number one? And this is the third rankings that we did a while back. We had Limerick, Clare, Kilkenny, Cork, Dublin, Wexford, Waterford, Galway, Tip, Antrim, Carlow. We won't bother changing everyone from 5 down. But in terms of that top 4, what are you thinking?
I think we should go and start changing all the other teams as well, even though we've no evidence to change them. I'm only messing. There's absolutely no reason not to have Limerick number 1. And listen, to me, there's absolutely no reason not to have Kilkenny number 2 as well.
I agree.
Based on, and I know you like to go back to the 2016 All-Ireland final, and you like to go back to the 2019 All-Ireland final, but
why? What happened in them games?
You would say collapses, and even one day potentially thrown in the towel. You would definitely say, but on most days, you know exactly what you're going to get out of Kilkenny, and they're coming into an Ireland semi-final now after best performance, I'd say, maybe since the 2022 All-Ireland final. Pretty dominant display. Yep, Dublin sat off them or whatever, but that was a dominant Kilkenny display. And there's the thing I like about the semi-finals now, and we get into it more over time, is that you favour Limerick and you favour Kilkenny, but it's definitely it's far beyond not beyond the realms of possibility that it could be a Clare Cork final. Definitely not. It's a live prospect. It's just that you know what you're going to get out of the top 2. The other 2, Cork haven't been in a semi-final since 2021. They have to play Limerick, obviously. Clare are going for the hat-trick of defeats against Kilkenny in an All-Ireland semi-final. Imagine finishing your season after losing 3 Munster finals to Limerick in a row and losing 3 All-Ireland semi-finals to Kilkenny in a row. And then you'd say Kilkenny could finish their season also losing 3 All-Irelands in a row to Limerick too. So, but there's absolutely no reason, in my head anyway, to suggest why it wouldn't be Limerick 1, Kilkenny 2.
Okay, well, look, we have a comment on X here, so let's have a look at what Jonathan Main has to say. He has Limerick, Kilkenny, Clare, and Cork. I'd probably agree with that, actually. Yeah, I don't see any reason not to have Clare as number 3 because they're league champions and they've beaten they beat Kilkenny in that game. They've shown over the last number of years that they're the team that can potentially take down Limerick. Maybe not necessarily in the knockout games and the championship games, because obviously the way the Munster finals have gone. I think that they're more likely to beat Kilkenny than Cork are to beat Limerick, even though Cork have already beaten Limerick. But do you feel like your sort of commentary around Cork has changed since, the last 2 games?
Well, to tell you what, I would just have the questions that I would have had about Cork earlier in the year have probably resurfaced again, to be honest with you, because they had, I would say they had 3 good performances to finish Munster. Not good against Waterford the first day. Waterford, albeit brilliant. Did a good performance against Clare, obviously exceptional against Limerick. And they did exactly what they needed to do against Tip. Was not good against Offaly. Not good the last day. And even just take Alan Connolly as a case in point. But I believe he was carrying a bit of an illness into the game at the weekend. But his form has tailed off a cliff in the last 2 games. You've gone from scoring 3 hat-tricks earlier in the year and a hat-trick in the Tipperary game to been taken off scoreless in 2 games in a row. So I would question, I'd have some question marks about their form. But again, you don't know, did they train through the Offaly game? You don't know, maybe they did. And it was, there was a bigger picture inside. Did they train through last weekend? Less so, I would imagine, but they have to get back up to the levels that they were at in Munster if they're going to beat Limerick. You have a fair idea what level Limerick are going to be at, don't you?
Yeah, and then Rob Downey was a significant loss for this game because his form has been brilliant. You could argue that moving him to centre back has changed everything. Kieran Joyce came in and did absolutely fine. Ethan Toomey hasn't been seen since the Tipperary game. I think he took a blow to the head there.
Should have known when he was up for interview at the All-Ireland launch that he probably wasn't going to play.
But there you go. You and I would have assumed that he'd come into the team last week, and then we were thinking, well, will Kieran Joyce play or will he remain on the bench? And obviously, as things turned out, they had a bit of a rejig, and Luke Meade went to midfield. Kieran Joyce went to centre back. And like, we're big fans of Luke Meade, but I didn't feel like his form was particularly good in that game. And I'm wondering, is that why he's dropped out of the pecking order? Maybe his form isn't where it normally is just at the moment. But I think there's a few question marks around Cork now coming into this All-Ireland semi-final. Whereas with Limerick, I mean, they've had all the questions, even going into the Munster final. They're down Seamus Flanagan, and obviously Peter Casey's gone for the year in the full forward line, but they still find a way to do it. So the days of questioning Limerick, particularly now that it's getting into do or die matches, I just don't think you can go against them.
They're back to Croke Park now as well. They've only been beaten once in Croke Park since 2014, is it? It's beaten once in Croke Park in the championship game since 2014.
Yeah, but they weren't there in 15, 16.
Yeah, but I know, you know what I mean. Like, it's like the Kilkenny hadn't been beaten in Nolan Park since 1940 something when Galway beat them. Yeah, but they've only played about 3 championship matches there. But yeah, like I don't know. I think Limerick are coming into that semi-final in a great spot, and just the fact that Limerick are the ones that will have the bit between their teeth going into a semi-final. They'll be the ones out for revenge on Cork. Not Cork were trying to save their season that night. Whereas Limerick are the ones, it's funny, like, I honestly, like, I don't think there's ever been less pressure on a team going for 5 in a row. I swear to God. I don't, there's more pressure on Cork. Like, we're nearly putting pressure on Cork to deliver, because you're feeling like it has to be now. It's kind of now or not now or never, but they need to come now. And same with Clare. Whereas Limerick are, not that they're getting away scot-free, but I just don't feel like there's as much pressure with the 5 in a row as I thought there would be. I'll put it that way.
It'll probably, well, actually, is that also down to the condensed season and the fact that nothing has time to percolate?
Maybe so, yeah. Like, I know people will give out or whatever, but it's obviously our job. We work in the media. Things do need time to percolate, to build up anticipation. Like, and I'm just saying, like, when you go from, let's say, an All-Ireland hurling final, that'll be over on the Sunday at 5 o'clock or whatever. You should be nearly digesting that still the next Thursday. But you're gone straight into an All-Ireland football final. Things need time to ramp up and, you know, build anticipation. And maybe that's why there's so few people at the, you know, those All-Ireland preliminary quarterfinals on Saturday. Like, really poor attendances, real poor attendance at the Tailteann Cup semi-finals yesterday. You know, a relatively poor attendance down in Thurles on Saturday as well. So, I don't know, people are probably talking with their feet as well, but I do think you need time to ramp things up and really get buy-in for stuff. People just don't buy in unconditionally. Some people will, but there's a lot of stragglers that need to be pulled in, shall we say.
Yeah, and again, I think it comes back to cut the league in half. And I don't even mind if you rejig things around so that most of the championship is on during the summer and start the, you know, go club then from maybe September until the following February or something like that. Don't quote me totally on that. I'm just saying I don't mind if we rejig it, but just cut the league in half, the amount of time that's been spent on it, and then let the championship breathe a little bit more. I think that's the biggest thing. We've 7 months of the year that are used for inter-county. That's plenty. Just use it properly.
And get rid of the pre-seasons and start the league earlier, and you'll buy a bit more time as well. Like, I've no issue with I don't have any issue with things going back 2 weeks. And then you start 2 weeks earlier, and then all of a sudden you have a month. And club players, the minority of club players are affected by that 2 weeks. The minority. It will only be, at the minute, like, it would in hurling, it would only be Limerick, Kilkenny, Cork and Clare. Everyone else can belt away, and there's no issue there. And same with the football. There's only 8 that are affected at this point, and there's only going to be 4 when we get to the semi-final. So there's no reason for the vast majority not to be planning, and that extra couple of weeks shouldn't have any effect on them.
And we're both happy enough, though, with the power rankings there, are we?
I think we are, yeah. Like, it's funny, where if Cork were in the form that they were in at the end of Munster, where would they be? Probably ahead of Clare.
Yeah.
And potentially ahead of Kilkenny.
But when you see how Dublin and Wexford performed at the weekend, does that in any way change how you'd look at Kilkenny's form just now? And I'm totally happy with them being at number 2 here. I think they're absolutely the second favourites, without question. And I expect them to give Limerick a brilliant game if they do get there. But would you slightly sort of take a little bit away from their Leinster run when you see how, I suppose, off it Wexford and Dublin were?
Yeah, a small bit. But it's kind of funny. Kilkenny will rise to, I'd imagine they will rise to Limerick. Like, they were in a right good position even in the All-Ireland final 10 minutes into the second half and faded it off last year. But like they are
games are
still
70 minutes after all.
They are true, yeah. They're still a fair bit off Kilkenny, or a fair bit off Limerick, though. Like a hell of a lot would have to go right for Kilkenny to beat Limerick in a championship game this year.